I guess maintaining my mental health, I try to balance spending time with friends and connecting closely with them, and also having time just to myself to think and process.
Usually what I do is I like to listen to music, just kind of distract myself from whatever's going on, and I also like to hang out with my dog and just pet and play with him, just hang out with him, I guess.
What I do to focus on my mental health is get my priorities straight and make sure that my mind is where it needs to be instead of focusing on things that really won't matter in a week, a month, or a year.
So something that I like to do is simply at the end of the day, I always like to write in my journal just to help reflect on my day and just visualize what I need to do, and it just helps me relax, if that makes sense. Just journaling.
So when I'm stressed with classes, what I like to do is go to sleep, watch some anime. That calms me down.
So watching that video helps us see a few examples of students' own coping techniques, taking care of themselves and how they're doing that on their own. I'm going to invite us all into a wellness practice right now, just to start off this event focused on our own well-being. And we'll just do, or I'll invite you to do, about a 3-minute mindfulness meditation with me. So all are invited to practice. If for any reason you would rather observe or just sit and take 3 minutes to do nothing, I invite you to do that too. So it's an optional practice and a secular practice, and really available to anyone. So we'll start out moving into a grounded posture, meaning that our bodies feel connected to the chair and the floor, noticing that your feet are fully planted on the ground, feeling the bottoms of your feet there, and that your body is being held by the chair, noticing that you are supported. As we're sitting, expanding upward toward the ceiling, stretching the spine tall so that we're in an upright position. And then with an exhale, allowing the shoulders to fall, allowing the arms to hang heavy at the sides, allowing the hands to rest in the lap. And you can let your eyes close if that feels comfortable, or you can simply lower your gaze. Taking a few mindful breaths here, meaning that we're breathing with awareness. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. And breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Noticing how it feels to take a few conscious breaths. These may be our first conscious breaths of the day. How does it feel to breathe in this moment, in this body, in this place? As we feel the sensation of breath in the body, we may notice that it's cool as the air comes in, warm as the air goes out. We may notice the sensation of the chest and belly expanding and contracting. Allowing our attention to rest for these moments on breathing, allowing ourselves to let go of the to-do lists and the external demands. Right now, we're just breathing. Taking a few more breaths here as we begin to wrap up. Maybe they're deeper breaths, full breaths, fully expanding the chest and belly, fully exhaling until you can no longer exhale. And to close our practice, I'm going to ring a bell. See if you can shift your attention to focus entirely on the sound of the bell. Letting your attention rest on the bell until you can no longer hear it, and that will conclude our practice. So taking a moment, a slow moment, to return to the space around us. So we bring our eyes back up and look around the room. Looking around you, even behind you, can help to reorient your nervous system to the safety of the space we're in right now. Even in a short meditation like that, just a few minutes, we can go pretty deep. It can happen quickly. So giving yourself the time to come back. That's a short practice. It's a mindful breathing practice you can use any time to help yourself ground. By ground, I mean to allow your nervous system to settle. It can be especially helpful right now if you're feeling stressed in your daily life, and to do it regularly throughout the day. So it's one tool that I offer my students in the stress management course that I teach. I've been teaching that course in the Department of Health and Human Services now for 3.5 years. So just a reminder, I'm Grace. There are a lot of us up here. So my name's Grace Helms-Kotre, and I'm a lecturer in Health and Human Services. And this course that I've been getting to teach now for a number of years, focusing on stress management, is an invitation to students to reflect on their own lives and where stress exists in their lives, to identify their habitual reactions to stress, and to identify their coping strategies, and then to determine which of those are serving them and which are not, and to make a stress management plan for themselves. So in that course, over 3.5 years, every term, I've seen a lot of students come through, and I've gotten to hear from them directly about the stress that they're experiencing, and it's a lot. I imagine that we know that, and some of us here are faculty and staff, and some are students, and so there's an awareness, I think, in general, that students are holding a lot. And so are faculty and staff. So in this course that where we're examining stress, I invite students to focus on what we can do personally. Absolutely, there are things we can do. We can use tools like mindfulness meditation and many others to help ourselves relate to stress more skillfully. Mitigate stress. Can't eliminate it, but mitigate stress in our lives to some extent. At the same time that we're doing that, throughout my course, I invite students to zoom out to see the bigger picture. So we can't only be focusing on our own individual efforts to manage stress. We have to see the bigger picture of where stress exists in our lives and what's causing it. We can address those issues too to some extent. So I want to invite us into a short, just a 3-minute activity where we are zooming out a little bit. And this is what I do with my students as well. So imagining that you have a nice camera, I don't have one quite like this, but a nice camera that has a zoom lens on it, and you're zoomed in all the way up close to an individual student. So maybe it's a student you have right now, maybe it's yourself, and you see that one student up close, and you can see that they are holding so much academically in terms of work responsibilities, transportation issues, caregiving responsibilities, all of the things that they have to manage in their daily lives. They're holding a lot. And they're trying to be well. They're doing all they can to be well, right? Working hard to be well, on top of everything else. And they're, succeeding in some ways and failing in others, just like all of us, right? So zoom out then a little bit to the next level, and we can see all of the relationships that surround this student. So imagining it like a web. And the student is in the center, and there are these offshoots, all of these lines connecting to the student's friends and family, and peers, and advisors, and administrators, and faculty, and all of the people in their lives. That web includes a lot of people who are nourishing to the student, who support them, who help to mitigate their stress in daily life, as well as those who don't, who actually maybe cause more stress or even create harm in their lives. And then some folks who are in more neutral category, right? So we see all of those relationships surrounding the student. Then we zoom out again to another level and we see the institutions that students are part of. Institution of UM-Dearborn, right? The institutions maybe where they work, organizations they're a part of, even broader institutions like the institution of healthcare in the US, the institution of housing. They have to relate with all of those institutions, relate to all of those institutions in their daily lives. And we can imagine there are ways in which the policies and practices of those institutions support their well-being, enhance their well-being. And then there are a lot of ways that those institutions don't, or actually create harm, right? And then we zoom out one final level with our camera lens, and we can see even a bigger picture. We can see the social, political, and economic context in which our students live and exist and survive or thrive, or a combination of those things. And if we're thinking about that broader context, we're talking about systems in the United States like racism and white supremacy, like classism and the way that capitalism creates extreme economic inequities, patriarchy, heterosexism. We're talking about systemic oppression. We're also talking about, so those are systems of harm, systems of healing, subcultures of healing, and ways that students are opting into those. So that much broader context, zooming all the way back into our student, now we can maybe see better, maybe for some of us it helps us to see better, that that student cannot ever be isolated from all of those other things, that those elements of context and those other systems, those layers, are part of the student's daily moment-to-moment life and cannot be removed. So if I'm talking to a student about managing stress, absolutely we can talk about on the personal level. There are things you can do for personal stress management and self-care, and those are critical, and you must choose ones that work for you and use them to keep yourself well. And we need to talk about your relationships. And we need to talk about your institutions. And we need to talk about the broader context within which you find yourself and how we can relate to those things and stay well, and how we can advocate for those things to help us be well. So, you know, from our standpoint here at the university as an institution, we have some power, those of us in positions of power, faculty and staff, and students to some extent as well. We have the ability to examine institutionally how are we impacting students' well-being through the practices and policies that exist and have just existed for a long time, those that we're creating anew, those that we're revising, revisiting. How can we create well-being through those mechanisms and see students as, you know, whole beings within a whole system, a complex system? So I believe that others on the panel are going to talk about that more, and I've used up, you know, if we add in the meditation, more than my time. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to, I think Sarah is next, yeah? Okay.
I'm not sure.
Is that right?
Got reordered. Caleb. Oh, no.
Caleb is next. Okay, so thank you all.